excited to have our guest on here today. It's wonderful to have Super Bowl champion and NFL Hall of Famer Brett Favre on the show today. Welcome to the show, Brett.
Well, thanks for having me. So you're in Mississippi and Alabama working in front lines. Or do you live in Mississippi?
Well, you know what? I live in Mobile, Alabama. So I think you might know about that.
That's very close. I drive through Mobile often. So very hour and 20 minutes away. So we're neighbors.
Well, you guys got to connect when you hear Dr. Hall's story about being a ward of the state, and he wrote a book and about his time and how he had to go and battle to become a doctor, and how important it was with how he, overcame challenges, and the military man as well, Dr. Hall. So I know, Brett, you see that as a very important thing as well, the military.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So how are you surviving the pandemic? How has that life been when Brett's used to going places, or maybe not? You're always going hunting and stuff. Maybe this whole quarantine thing's been all right for you.
Not a whole lot has changed for me or my family, other than our youngest daughter. We have two daughters. We have a 31-year-old who has three boys. They live here close to us. And our youngest daughter, she just turned 21 last month, but she plays beach volleyball for Southern Miss, which is a Division I sport now. Well, they play in the spring, so they got one tournament under their belt, and we're scheduled to play at a tournament the following weekend at LSU, and it was canceled 2 days before, and the rest is history. So really, what's different is we didn't do any traveling, going to watch her play. In fact, our daughter moved back in with us. The university is only 10 miles away, but she just packed up everything in her apartment and just moved back home. And we just kind of been chilling, watching movies. We actually took a couple of vacations. We went to Colorado for a week and did some hiking and some biking and just kind of laid low, enjoyed the weather. And we also went to Lake Tahoe for my daughter's 21st birthday, and we pulled her around on skis on the boat. We did some hiking, just kind of chill and enjoy the weather. So that's kind of what we've been doing here at home. Like most places, the restrictions will ease. They will tighten back up. There'll be a mask. A statewide mask, you have to wear it, and then that will subside, and then you can go to the restaurants as normal. We actually went and ate last night at a local restaurant we like to eat at, and they just reopened, and it was nice to kind of get out. We love going to movies. We have not gone to a movie. We watched movies here at our house, but we're kind of old-fashioned. We'd like to go to a theater, me and my wife, and sit down and have malted milk balls and watch a movie. I look forward to the day when we can do that.
Yeah, they're starting to open up theaters in Pittsburgh, and they're going to have 15-cent movies by bringing out all the old movies. I think it's Cinemark or one of them is deciding that, and it's going to be 15 cents to come in so they could see the theater when it opens up next week. So it's crazy to think about opening up theaters. And Dr. Hall, I think you'd agree as well. When you're hearing about theaters opening, see how different each state is. I'm in Pennsylvania, and they're going to be opening up very soon.
Yeah. I think it just depends on that local area and how the testing's going. And as Brett knows, I mean, even in Biloxi now, you can go there and get a good meal. So
yeah, wow, absolutely. Not good for you, but very good for the belly.
All right, Dr. Hall, question for Brett.
Well, no problem. I'm so excited to have this All-American champ on the show today. So, Brett, tell us a little bit about, the area of Gulfport, where you grew up, and, did you always want to play football?
I always wanted to play, yes. I was born in Gulfport, Mississippi. I grew up probably 15 minutes to the west of Gulfport, in Hancock County. There's 3 counties on the Gulf Coast. Jackson County, of course, borders Mobile. Harrison County sits right in the middle of the 3. That is Gulfport and Biloxi, as well as some other cities. And then Hancock County, we border Slidell, Louisiana, and then the next town over would be New Orleans. So I grew up, even though it was South Mississippi, most people thought I grew up in New Orleans, 50 minutes away. But yes, my dad was a high school football coach and coached baseball for probably 35 years. So when I was, as far back as I can remember, I was either running water out to the players during the timeout, high school football when I was a first grader on up. And I was a bat boy for my dad, summer league ball, American Legion ball in Gulfport for as far back as I can remember. And I had two goals in mind, either to play pro baseball or to play pro football, and there was no alternative. So thankfully for me, it panned out.
Wow.
And that's so tremendous that you knew what you wanted to do, Brett. And that's so key, right, in life. When you have mindset of what you want to do, you can achieve your goals. When you don't have that mindset, you can't.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's pretty simple. I mean, it's complicated in some respects, but it's very simple. If you know what you want to do, you have to put in the work and persevere. It's not always easy. It's not always an easy road. And you know, I've told our daughters so many times, and I coached high school football here in Hattiesburg for 2 years, and I would tell those kids as well, you know, it's hard work to be good. And that doesn't mean athletics necessarily. It could be anything. And you can't really achieve anything without setting goals. And my youngest daughter would go round and round. I go, do you set an attainable goal for the week? Maybe it's get a little stronger. Maybe increase your vertical. Maybe this week it's weight loss. Maybe it's weight gain. And she's like, Dad, really? Give me a break. But I'm telling the truth. I mean, it's definitely a hard road, no matter, even when you know what you want to do. And certainly when you're not real sure, the road is very hard. So definitely it worked out for me. Thankfully, I didn't have to go an alternative route.
All right. Next question, Dr. Hall.
Wow, that's so right. It's so right, Brett. And you know, and what's important, you know, is having mentors. And so, you know, growing up, tell us about some of your mentors.
Well, my father was very instrumental in my success. As you would expect, he was my coach. You know, and I always say this, and I even mention it a little bit during my Hall of Fame speech. You know, it's sort of like Karate Kid in that you go, okay, just like Danielson was trying to figure out, how does this pertain to me going and getting into a fight and using my karate when you got me painting the fence? And that's sort of how my dad taught me. You know, at one time in my career, I had every passing record in the NFL in history. And keep in mind, in high school, my dad ran the wishbone. We never threw the ball.
Oh, dear Lord.
And I remember oftentimes leaving practice, he and I were driving back home from practice and being in an argument with my dad saying, how can I get a scholarship if you don't throw the ball? I thought I had a valid argument. And I almost didn't get that scholarship. I got one scholarship offer at the last second. And if my dad were alive today, he would say, see, it worked out fine. He taught me the things that I really didn't care about: toughness, leadership. I wanted to throw. I wanted to throw touchdowns. I wanted to, to be in the paper. And that stuff didn't matter to him. And here I am at 50, I get it now. And so his mentorship was sort of like, I say old fashioned. It was tough, hard nosed work, leadership. You lead by example, those type of things. But so personally, he would be my number one mentor. Now, as far as people I looked up to, there was two guys that I emulated and said, this is who I want to be when I get if I make it to pro football. Archie Manning, obviously was a local guy, played right next door.
Right.
Roger Staubach. I love the Cowboys, and I love Roger Staubach. And I felt like even though I didn't know what kind of style I was, I thought that was me. Run around, make things happen, and you're never out of a play.
Wow. I tell you, two amazing people to look at as mentors, and your father, and to see those things. And Dr. Hall, you say your mentors have helped you in life, right, Dr. Hall, get to where you were, because especially when you were awarded the state.
No doubt. And you need those mentors, to give you a path, in this world that sometimes can seem very confusing for young people. So yeah,
Absolutely.
no doubt.
Absolutely. Very confusing.
All right, Dr. Hall, next question.
Well, no problem. And so now tell us a little bit about, you went to school there at the University of Southern Mississippi, and there's always challenges when you're going to college and you're playing athletics, and you're getting to the top of your game. So tell us about some of those challenges balancing academics and athletics when you're in college.
Well, I'll go back to when I was coaching at Oak Grove High School here in Hattiesburg. We won a state championship and had a tremendous group of young men, and a very smart group. We dressed out actually over 100 players, believe it or not. Some guys would wear a duplicate number because our coach wanted everyone to feel that atmosphere, which I thought was great. But I stress to those guys all the time. We had a fair amount of kids go D1. A couple of guys are playing minor league baseball that were on our football squad. One kid is just finishing up at University of California. And I stress to them all the time the importance of academics. And, at times I got the eye roll, as you would expect. But I go back to when I was in high school, junior high, high school, elementary. My mother was a special education teacher for 30 some odd years. My dad was a driver's ed teacher and coach for the same amount of time. So I got the importance of academics. Did I like it? Not necessarily. Did history turn me on like football did? No, but I knew it was important. And, when you go to college, as we know as adults, you have to cut the cord with your kids to a certain degree, and you have to fend for yourself. And that can be good, that can be bad, depending on what kind of teaching, they were brought up with, and you let them go. And for me, I wasn't real sure what the alternative plan was. As I said earlier, it was baseball or football. I actually signed to play both at Southern Miss. I started as a true freshman in football and chose to channel all my energy towards football just because I didn't want to miss spring practice. I mean, this was a great opportunity. But meanwhile, I was banking on the draft at some point in the near future, but I knew my academics was very important just in case. But also the challenges you face with peer pressure and today's world is even much different, much harder. But when I was 17, 18 years old, there wasn't social media, but there was peer pressure. There was drinking, there was drugs, no different than there is today. And trying to sort through all that, what's cool, what's not cool, what your focus is, what your goals are are obviously very important. And it goes back to like what you said, Dr. Hall, that mentorship, getting, maybe it's not your dad, maybe it's a coach, maybe it's a teacher, maybe it's a family friend that can steer you on the right path and give you some unbelievably wisdom, knowledge that you may not want to do this, young man. You may not want to do this. You're barking up the wrong tree by drinking. And I would say all those things to the kids I was coaching in high school. When I got to college, I started drinking. I thought I was cool. And come to find out that before I knew it, drinking had the upper hand on me. And I haven't had a drop since 1998. Pain pills, harmlessly. I didn't get addicted because I wanted to, but I did get addicted. So just having someone to lean on, to give you insight, who's been down some of the roads that you're walking down, is absolutely vital in any young person's success.
Agree. And that's so important to have that. What did you major in college, Brett?
I was actually going to be a special education teacher like my mother. I tell you what, I think I would have been a really good one.
Yes, you would.
But when we drove to school every morning, 1st through 12th at my school was all together. So now everybody has a school that you go to a lower elementary, and then you go to middle, and then some even have like a 9th grade school that's separate. But ours was all together. So there's 4 kids, my mother and father, and we all drove to school together, and we drove home together. So when we would get to school, I would go in my mom's class we'd get there before all the other kids. And when her kids would start coming in, I would always have fun with them. And she had all ranges of special ed, from very severe to lazy.
Right.
And I just took a liking to, I felt like I gravitated to her students very well, and felt like that was my calling. And one of the things that we do for our foundation, my wife and I, is we do things with Special Olympics. Again, it wouldn't have paid very much being a high school coach in Mississippi and a teacher, but it would probably have been very rewarding had I done that.
Great. Just again, things we don't know about Brett Favre today here on the Dr. Christopher Hall Show on the Total Media Network. Go ahead, Dr. Hall, with the next question. I mean, I just did not know you major in education. I, too, am an education major. I taught for 9 years before going into business and entrepreneurship, but I have a tutoring company, too. But education, once I learned to teach, it's such a powerful thing you can utilize in the world once we become educators, because we know we have to constantly learn, and we always grow. If we are stagnant, then we don't want to grow in life. Right. We're going to miss out on all the exciting parts of life, for sure. Right. All right, Dr. Hall, next question.
Wow, and what a champ. I mean, just to talk about some of the challenges he had that could help young people who want to go into the NFL and who are going to be in the that high profile life. So that's just incredible. Well, there's this whole and this is kind of central. I think what we're going to talk about is there's this whole field that these players end up illnesses they end up with, this undiagnosed epidemic of concussions that are going on. Tell us what your thoughts are on that, Brett. And just what do you think about that?
Well, concussions are a major problem. And as we all know now, they're not going away. They're going to happen. And not necessarily on the football field or baseball field or soccer field. It can be in your home. It can be on the ice rink. It can be playing by the pool, playground, car wrecks, elderly falling. I could go on and on. The last play that I played in my 20-year career, I played started 321 games. The last game that I started ended with one of two major concussions that I had in my career. Now, how many concussions did I have overall? Who knows? Because as we know now, and I had a very good long conversation with Dr. Benjamin Amalu, who Will Smith portrayed in the movie Concussion. And he said, Brett, what people don't realize, and hopefully they start realizing, is that when you mention, or you hear a player mention, yeah, or you see a kid bang a helmet with another kid and he shakes his head, like he's getting the cobwebs out. Right. Or that player later says, yeah, I was seeing stars, or I was a little woozy, but I was fine. Dr. Malu said, that's a concussion. He said, think about boxing in this way. It's not the knockout blows that do the most damage. It's the thousands of jabs that do the damage. And he said football is a perfect example of that. There are some big devastating blows that when a kid tries to get up, he staggers like a boxer. Yeah. No doubt that's a concussion. But what about the ones where the kid stays in the game and he saw stars, maybe he was a little woozy for 2-3 seconds, he didn't really know where he was, and then it came back. That's a concussion. And the long-term effects, we're really just kind of on the cusp of what that really means and how devastating that is. But we're seeing, being from Pennsylvania and being a Steelers fan, that movie really was kind of centered around the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the things that are happening to NFL retired players, and even some present players who are choosing to retire early, is scary. It's frightening. And I have 3 grandsons, 10, 6, and 3. And I'm often asked the question, well, they're going to play football? I am not going to encourage them to play football at all. If they choose to play, I will support them. But I would much rather, and I always say this, and people get a chuckle out of it, I'd much rather caddy for them in golf. And the main reason is because I'm so fearful of them being tackled and the damage being severe. At least maybe, you think if you're okay after a big hit, that 5 years from now, 15 years, or 25 years from now, you'll be fine. That's not necessarily true. And there is no treatment. So I was approached by a guy by the name of Jake Van Landingham, who at the time, about 8 years ago, I was retired. I was here in Hattiesburg. A mutual friend introduced us. That mutual friend is a doctor here in Hattiesburg. His name's David Lee, great guy. And he said, I want you to hear this guy out about concussions. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay, whatever. And I listened to him. He was the head of the neuroscience department at Florida State University at the time. He has since left to pursue his developing of drugs, in particular for concussions. He almost died himself prior to that, actually early 90s. He told me the story. He was jumped by a guy, a vagrant, in a bar outside of the University of Florida, where he and his brother and some friends were shooting pool, and he hit his head on the curb. They rushed him to the hospital. They released him that night, said he was fine. He went back to his hotel room. His brother left. He had to go to work and said, you okay? And he said, yeah, I'm fine. And his dad called the room a little bit later to check on him, and he couldn't talk. The swelling of his brain had increased so much that it inhibited his talk. But he was able to knock the phone off the hook. And his dad knew that he had a brain injury or head trauma, and said, hey, if you can hear me, I'm going to send a friend, because they live in Tallahassee. So I'm going to send a friend of mine over to check on you. And fortunately, that guy came over, broke into the room, took him to a hospital. They gave him an experimental drug that later did not pass FDA approval that saved his life. And it was the last straw. Saved his life. And from that point on, it was his just laser focus to develop something that will treat concussions. And that's what he's pursuing. And so I heard him out. He had developed a product that basically is a nasal solution. If you think your child has a concussion, if you think your player has a concussion, if you think your grandmother has a concussion, you do this application that basically they blow out their mouth and it blows this medication into the brain, and within 7 minutes it reduces the inflammation of the brain.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, well, this is wonderful.
Yeah.
As I've learned, and it's very simple, I know it's complicated, but it's very simple. The main problem with a concussion is the brain swells. The less it swells, the less damage.
Correct.
A better medical term. So if you can reduce the inflammation, then, I mean, you're not going, will it cure? We're not going to get rid of concussion, so we better treat them. And it's been a hard sell. Surprisingly, I've learned a little bit about the red tape side, and it's frustrating. But that product, that nasal medication, requires FDA approval. This, on the other hand, is new. This is a non-FDA approved cream.
Okay.
That basically Jake has developed kind of by accident using aloe, rubbing it on the neck.
Okay.
And within minutes, and this is so before a game, you use it. Before the kids go on the playground, you use it. Hockey game, you rub it on the neck before, and it provides 7 hours of anti. It's like taking an anti-inflammatory by mouth prior to a game, or prior to a half marathon. This is providing anti-inflammatory protection. So we're hoping to get this out and about like ASAP. But he just basically developed this in the last few months. So that's kind of what I'm up to.
That's so interesting, Brett. And Chris, I'm going to let you summarize, Brett, after that, kind of because you've really kind of taken that point. So I'm a former athlete myself. I'm a former professional wrestler, so I took many chair shots to the head. I was in minor leagues, but I took a lot of chair shots to the head, different things like that. So it's more for people who have – what about people that are currently have concussions? This product doesn't work for that type of thing. It's only for
no, neither one. In fact, I asked that question right from the get-go. I said, Jake, what about the concussions I've had? He said, I'm sorry, this does no good. This is for this actually is pre. The nasal solution is after the fact. So a kid gets a major concussion, you do the application and hope that it reduces the inflammation enough that there's not major damage.
Yes. Absolutely. Okay. So where can we purchase the product then? Chris is going to summarize you. Where can we pick up the product and stuff?
Well, it's manufacturing, in manufacturing right now. They got a tube to me like ASAP so I could hold this up. I would go to Prev Pro. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, we can.
PREVPRO. And or Previcus, and get more info. But we're like working like day and night trying to get this out and about. We're probably, and I don't want to sound like the business person because I'm not, but I think we're probably going to do online first, and then hopefully get into retail, CVS, places like that, Walgreens, but Dick's Sporting Goods, things of that nature. But we got to get it manufactured first, but that's in the works.
All right, Chris, summarize Brett.
Well, no problem. Well, there you have it. You know, one of the most electrifying NFL quarterbacks in history. Okay, a Super Bowl champ. He's given us some great information for our young people. Okay, to stay focused, to have mentors. Okay, to believe in yourself, and so now here with an incredible cream and with the purpose. Okay, to help us with this epidemic of concussions, preventive cream that can go stop the inflammation or prevent it, and therefore stop the long-term effects of concussions that occur over years. So, wow, just an awesome interview. I'm so excited that the Super Bowl champ Brett Favre was here with us today. Thank you for coming on the show, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, Brett. Other projects going on? Your foundation. Where can we find info on the foundation and stuff so people can?
Favre, all one word. Favre, the number 4. Favre for hope. My wife had breast cancer, so she gears everything towards breast cancer awareness, treatment for people who can't medically get their own treatment. She mammograms, things of that nature. And then on my end, I mentioned Special Olympics. We disadvantaged children basically in the state of Mississippi and in the state of Wisconsin. We've done things, cystic fibrosis, St. Jude. But you can look that up online and hopefully help us out.
Well, we definitely want to, Brett. And you're hopefully going to see an NFL season. Who knows? But you want to see movies before an NFL season. You want to get to the movie theater.
Or both, but I'll take one if not the other. But I'd love to have both.
All right. Well, I really learned a lot about Brett that I did not know. And I'm glad we had this kind of interview because you never get that kind of interview to really see the different side of Brett Favre, especially for the people that are angry when you beat them every time. Now they know this is the Brett Favre that we should know and love. So thanks for coming by.
This is an incredible opportunity to have on the show today. And we know naughty by nature in this group, but let's say we've got the composer Vin Rock, Treat, and DJKG, and very famous songs, Grammy Award-winning group. And so I'm very, very excited to welcome to the show, very inspirational individual, Mr. Vin Rock. Welcome to the show, Vin Rock.
All right, thanks for having me. How you guys doing?
We're doing fantastic, Vin, and it's great that you came by. Now, how have you been dealing with, again, in New York City, the pandemic? Now, again, there's less cases where you're at, but that had to be a pretty big shock when COVID finally came, especially being located in New York.
Yeah, so we're actually in New Jersey. Right now I'm in New York, but we're located in New Jersey. So it is the New York tri-state area. And man, when this thing broke out, it was crazy. So, you know, it's densely populated here and we all locked down and we followed instructions. And thanks to, you know, Governor Cuomo, he was going hard at everyone. And then our governor, Phil Murphy, they formed a coalition and they shut it down. So we were able to get it under control. I just saw today, it's like this is the third week or third something that New York City hasn't reported a death, a COVID-related death. So we're getting a grip on it here.
All right, Dr. Hall, first question for Vin. It's good news, but I want to have those news throughout the country, and it doesn't look that good, but we'll stay positive. Go ahead, Dr. Hall, with the question.
Right.
Very true, very sure. Stay positive. Well, like I said, a very exciting opportunity to have a wonderful guest and a very inspiring gentleman. And we're going to learn about this story. But, you know, Vin Rock, tell us a little bit about yourself, actually, and about what it was like growing up in East Orange, New Jersey, and the kind of community that you come from.
Yes, well, I'm born and raised in East Orange, New Jersey. I'm the youngest of 7. And a single parent. My mother raised 7 children,
Oh my.
you know, by herself. So I'm a 70s baby. I was born in 1970. I'll be 50 next month.
Okay.
So, you know, we grew up in this small town of East Orange, New Jersey. It's the neighboring city of Newark, New Jersey. And it's 4 square miles, about 70,000 people. And just coming up, you know, it's a close-knit community. And when we were in high school, we basically started our group. And because the town is so small, like everyone knows each other. So we had a great support group from high school. And then when we graduated high school, you know, we still had that whole community support group. And that's what encouraged us to push us along. And, you know, ironically enough, Queen Latifah is from our hometown of East Orange, New Jersey. So she was on in the music industry. So she began her career just before us. And we were able to reach out to her, show her what we could do. And as luck has it, she was just starting her management company, Flavor Unit Management, and Naughty by Nature was the first group signed to Flavor Unit Management, Queen Latifah's company, and the rest is pretty much history.
So how did you get that introduction to Queen Latifah? I'm sure people want to know that story because it's always challenging, even if they live in the same area, if they're very successful, to say, okay, we have talent, but how do we get that introduction? That's the big thing that everyone needs, is that one connection can change their life if they have the right talent.
Yeah, well, like I said, you know, we're all from East Orange. So Queen Latifah was born and raised there. We've all known each other way before the
Well, you
fame.
knew her. Oh my gosh,
Yes,
really?
yes. So we knew each other long before the fame. I lived on 15th Street. Queen Latifah's aunt, Annie Lane, was the president of our block association. So, you know, Latifah used to come around all the time when she was just a tomboy playing basketball. And then when this hip hop thing blew up in the 80s, you know, we all used to go around town, compete against each other in local clubs. And it just that happened that Queen Latifah got signed to Tommy Boy Records first. And then a year or two later, you know, we came to her and said, you know, we're the New Styles. We were a different group called the New Style before Naughty by Nature. And, you know, we invited Latifah and her Flavor Unit crew to see us perform. So we rented out a gym, packed out the gym, performed, and they were blown away. And we gave them the demo and they was like, okay, we'll co-sign.
And see, that's again that kind of dream, to know the same place you grew up. I never knew that story, and I wonder how many of your fans know that story, right? Would you say, if you had a test for Naughty by Nature, would they know that Queen Latifah and you guys were that tight? Especially newer people that listen to your music, because it's not just the group. When I grew up listening to Naughty by Nature, there are so many fans of different generations too.
Yeah, definitely. So I know we've been around for 30 years, so I know people understand the affiliation with between Naughty by Nature and Queen Latifah. They may not know the intimate story, but I think our core fans understand the story.
I see, and that's the important, but I didn't know that. And again, these are the kind of things that you don't always see. The story, probably Queen Latifah brought you on MTV at one point, in some point of time, and now the way the business was then, right? Or different things, and that's how they did things, which is not the way things are done anymore. All right, Dr. Hall, next question.
Well, no problem. You know, that's what's incredible, is that these were young people from an inner city, from humble backgrounds, okay? And they went to such stardom. And so tell me this, how important is that when you come from a community, to be able to come back and inspire kids and other people who might want to join your path?
Well, the thing about our hometown is that, again, it's only 4 square miles, 4.5 square miles, roughly 70,000 people. We have greats like the legendary actor John Amos from Good Times. He's from East Orange. Dionne Warwick is from East Orange. The late great Whitney Houston is from East Orange. Althea Gibson, the great tennis great, is from East Orange. Like I said, Queen Latifah, Naughty by Nature. I mean, the Notori Norton, who's on 50 Cent's Power series. It's something in the water out here. So we're a close-knit community, and it's important to stay that way, because especially our inner city kids, when they see someone like us or someone who looks like them go out in the world and become famous or become accomplished, it just gives them inspiration to say, hey, there's someone that my mother knows or my uncle knows, they grew up with them. So this is possible. It's not so far-fetched. So it's important to, stay grounded, stay engaged in the community, and have that community support you. And it's not, just for the inner city community. That's any community in the world, basically. That's how we bring up the next generation.
Exactly. So let's talk about, you're talking about those humble beginnings. Did you and Queen Latifah dream to think that someday you guys would be famous? Is that ever in your mindset when you're on the playgrounds or hanging out together, or your group, and saying, we're going to be famous someday?
Well, it wasn't about being famous, like how hip hop is today. You associate hip hop with just gaudiness and materialism and diamonds and Rolls Royces. Right. Back when we came up in the 80s, hip hop, it wasn't about that. Before all of this corporate money was dumped into it, it was for the love of art and culture. So from breakdancing and beatboxing to rapping and DJing and graffiti art, this is all we cared about, and it was about being skillful and just showing what you know. So in pursuit of that, we always knew that, we're going to get on a bigger platform, but it wasn't about being, famous. It was about showing your skills, saying, I'm going to be the best at what I do within the hip hop culture.
And I'm going to have one follow-up. Once you did become, successful, how did that change your life?
Oh man, it changed our lives drastically. Me personally, my mom passed in 1988. I was 17 years old, just about to graduate high school, and my sister had twin girls in 86. So the two of us being the youngest, we were left for ourselves and to fend for ourselves. So I was still working at Burger King, going to Trenton State College, and man, I still had to work. So, when we got signed in 1991 and came out with OPP in 91, 92, man, I was able to buy a 5-bedroom colonial house and, the first homeowner in my family. And I took my sister and her niece, my two nieces, and I raised them. So lo and behold, not only were they the first college graduates in our family, they're the first with master's degrees, and they're both going for PhDs now. So this is how you break that cycle, and this is what hip hop has been able to do for tons of families in hip hop.
See, when I think of 1991, and I'll go to Christopher Hall on Dr. Hall, next question. I graduated from high school in 91. So you're thinking 91, 92, your music, definitely, on the dance floor, all the different things, the girls, I think of that song. So there you go. It's kind of like you have that, you're in the mix between the 80s and 90s. And it's when you grew up in that genre, certain music just speaks to you. And that song, oh my gosh, and it's kind of reminding me of it. And I'm like, okay, now I'm remembering when I heard it. And when I was there, I was at, a dance, a senior dance, or the prom or something like that. You know what I mean? So it's pretty interesting. All right, Dr. Hull, next question. That shows my age. I'm 47, you're 50. So you're close to 50. Yes, we're very close age.
Wow. Yeah, and the thing is, Vin Rock, he brings out a great point, this underlying, I guess you could say, rock, that hip hop forms and projects, in creating opportunities for, like he did, people in his family go to college and be some of the first college students. So that's wonderful. So let me ask you this now. winning a Grammy Award is a huge thing, and Grammy Award for the best rap album. Okay, tell me about that. How did that feel? When you guys were receiving that award. I mean, and you were nominated for what performance twice, but you won that one Grammy for the best album. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so us winning a Grammy in '95, '96, it was definitely a blessing, because again, we didn't do this to say, "Oh, I'm gonna win a Grammy and do all of this stuff." It was just like you have to show what you know, and we were just in the studio trying to make good music. And when we got nominated and won, we were like, "Oh my goodness!" But unfortunately, back then in '96, the Grammys, they didn't respect rap music. So our category never got aired on television.
Oh, no.
Our category wasn't even acknowledged during the main ceremony. So I remember going to the arena or the theater, and we were doing the red carpet, and that's when we learned we won. So that was even before the show began. So I remember just walking in the theater, opening the door and screaming in there like, yeah, we won. And then we kept it moving. We kept doing press, but never really got to sit in the ceremony or get properly acknowledged. So, but lo and behold, the Grammys have come around now, and they definitely respect hip hop music more. You have to, because it's the #1 music genre in America, arguably the world.
Right.
So things change, things evolve, and hip hop music is here. It's here to stay.
But the talent was in the 80s and 90s. I know you disagree with me on that too. Meaning the ones that taught the guys today. If it wasn't for 80s and 90s hip hop and rap, forget it. You guys, there wouldn't be the meteoric rise that where it's at today to the mainstream. I remember in 8th grade or seven. No, I was earlier now. It's like 5th grade. I'd have to stay up all night just to listen to rap. Rap was not even played on the radio.
Right.
In the mainstream. So I'd have to stay up to listen to the Fat Boys or listen to Run DMC, all those people. How did those people kind of shape you as a rapper? Looking at
Oh man, well that was the early 80s. So I remember, just like you said, hip hop, you had to stay up at 1, 2 in the morning just to listen to it on basically pirate radio. And some of my best or favorite artists were the Fat Boys. Rest in peace, Buffy, the human beatbox, him, Dougie Fresh, Slick Rick, and Run DMC. They were very, instrumental or influential in our career, because we came up at a time where they were from New York, and our hometown is like 15 minutes outside of the Lincoln Tunnel. So when hip hop was blowing up in New York City back then, all of those artists came into New Jersey and performed. So we were able to touch them and feel them and see them perform before the rest of the country did, basically. So they were very instrumental or influential in our careers, and they definitely made us want to be down in hip hop.
And I hope now they're looking at you in the same way of what you've done, the new generation of hip hop and rap, and respect you, because that's the thing that we have to always have to look at. The people paved the way, to now. And I think it's so important for all that craziness, for sure.
Yeah. And and they do. We get a lot of young people from walking down the street. They'll say, "Hey, what's up, OG?" And they pay their respect. So it's definitely a lot of love out there.
That's good. All right, Dr. Hall, next question.
Yeah, this is truly kind of like I said, an American story. Coming up with, from a humble background and reaching to the greatest heights. And again, coming from that undeserved background myself, in Watts, California, I can certainly understand how much work it takes. So you tell me, how much work does it take and focus to really reach that level? I think a lot of people don't know. You tell us.
Yeah, well, it takes a lot of work, a lot of dedication, a lot of sacrifice. But here's the most important thing. we loved it so much that it didn't feel like work. You know, when you're passionate about something and you really believe in it, it's like, it doesn't feel like work. You put in so many hours, it's like you can't even count the hours. So, you know, that's what it was. And that's what I encourage young people today, even when they want to get into hip hop. I'm like, listen, if you want to come here for a cash grab, just thinking you're going to come in and come up and make a lot of money, you might as well go on about your business, because for one, the people see through you. And for two, your work ethic and your intent is going to show, and it never pans out that way. But people, you know, when the fans observe a person and they say, wow, they're really passionate about what they do, they really care about what they do, and it's going to show with the fans. And, you know, next thing you know, you realize, like, wow, I put in a lot of work, and it was a lot of hard work, but it didn't really feel like it.
And that's the thing that I did 10 years ago when I started my radio show from the beginning in a college radio station to now all syndication. And I was talking to a friend today and saying all, like, looking at downloads and looking at different things and where I've come. And I'm like, wow, you know, and I have this mindset. It's not about making money. I just love doing this. I have a digital marketing company, and I do tutoring, and I do all these other side things, but I love what I do to get to talk to people like you every day. And it's in all walks of life, because you learn things. And it's kind of funny. The teacher in me likes to ask those kind of questions to kind of hear it. And I'm always be a teacher, even though I'm not teaching anymore. But Dr. Hall, next question, but we're going to get to the education point of all this, but man, he's bringing me back to memories. I guess I'm going to have to, Spotify needs to play more 90s hip hop. They're only playing certain ones. I want to just jam out to hip hop. I've been just jamming out too much to 80s. Got to hit it. I got to find you guys on Spotify and start playing you, because again, just a reminisce. But go ahead, Dr. Hall, next question.
Wow, that's incredible. Well, you know, in some of these, you know, very iconic rap songs actually have hidden messages for people, okay, for young people, okay, and it gives them direction and focus them on what to do in the future. And so, can you think of any songs that you guys did that you think had a clear message to America's young people to say, hey, you know, the sky's the limit, and you can do what you want to do?
Well, we have a song called "Everything's Gonna Be All Right." The original title was called "Ghetto Bastard," and that was Tretch's journey, like an autobiographical song that he talked about when, you know, he was coming up as a teenager. His parents broke up, his father left, and he had problems with his mom, and then she kicked him out. But then he came, you know, and met us in high school, and then we formed a bond, and then we had a common goal to be successful, you know, musicians. And that was that camaraderie and that common goal that helped us keep everything together. You know, even for him, it kept his psyche there, and he had something to work towards, as opposed to giving it up or giving up and saying, you know what, screw the world, my parents don't like me, they kick me out and kick me to the curb. So sometimes, you know, and I tell this to youth all the time, sometimes no matter what's going on around you, this is the power or one of the benefits of being in school. You can meet some of your best lifetime partners just by attending school, you know, and that's what happened with KG, Tretch, and myself. There's tons of other stories out there like that, and there's nothing like that camaraderie, because it's rough navigating this world alone. Sometimes your family members don't get it, and most of the time you have to lean on your best friends. So our song, "Everything's Gonna Be All Right," is one of those most inspirational songs.
Well, I was talking to James Murr, and he said, how cool was it to hang out with family and get paid for it with Impractical Jokers? So he was saying that a couple weeks ago. And I mean, I could imagine being with my best friends and be on the road and get to stay together and hang out together. That'd be awesome, right? Especially for the years still doing this and still do that. Well, let's talk about the transition entrepreneur-wise for you and how, and going into more about the fundraising, but you again are really into not just music. You're much more than music. Explain that to our fans, your fans, and
Yeah, well,
that might not know you. Yeah.
yes. So, for all of us, I mean, we didn't even realize when you're putting together a band, and then once you get to a certain point where you're actually pursuing a record deal, you really put together a business. It's a startup. And then once we got put on to Tommy Boy Records and we blew up and we were able to buy homes and stuff like this, so we realized, wow, we do have a business. And then, like, our song Poverty's Paradise, our album, our third album was called Poverty's Paradise. That whole theme was like, yeah, we come from the hood and we come from the ghetto, but now you could take your poverty and turn it into your paradise. And it was that theme that made us say, now we could come and reinvest in our communities, which is invested in real estate. We put up a retail clothing store, which enabled us to hire a lot of family and friends and people around the way, so they could learn retail, they could learn the apparel business, and just being more community active. Engage in the mayor, engage in city hall, engage in the board of education. So this is stuff we picked up early, like 23, 24 years old, and we remained engaged in that. So, basically that's what we do. And then we just separated companies. So I ran the merchandise in the clothing store. KG ran the record label, so he was discovering and putting on new artists. And then Tretch had the film company because he liked to act. So he was investing in that. So all three of us, and again, it goes back to our album when we were the New Style. The title of that album was called Independent Leaders. So it was all like prophecy on how we moved throughout our career.
So let's just talk about your branding with the clothing line. How's that going? And then we'll talk about
this is very well, man. We put up our first retail store in 1994, Naughty Gear, downtown Newark. And at the same time, we had naughtygear.com. So back then, we only had a website where you would print out an order form, check off what you want, put a check and money order in the mail, and mail it to the store. Then we would actually ship out the goods from our retail store. Fast forward, everything is online right now. So we're still hands-on with our online shop at naughtybynaturesstore.com. And we also have licensing deals. So worldwide licensing deals, and they wholesale to Target, Walmart, Fashion Nova, you name it. But we still, manage our core online business.
Now, Dr. Hall, I know you have the next question that's involving education before we summarize, Vin. So go ahead with a question about what they're doing that's giving back to the community, even though they've mentioned how much you give back to the community all the time in all areas. And that's fantastic. That reminds me of what Magic Johnson did, but not every successful people from humble beginnings gives back to the community. So congrats on you doing that. That's fantastic as a group, because a lot of people aren't bringing that money back to the community. They're forgetting their community they grew up in. So you should be commended for that. But go ahead, Dr. Hall. That question about
Vin Rock. Yeah, definitely. Vin Rock just laid out a beautiful tapestry, okay, of what you can do, coming from poverty and to bring yourself into power in your community.
So inspiring. And this is the sad part. We don't do enough positive things. Like, people think of Naughty by Nature music, but they don't think of the whole story behind them.
Basically, just look out for 2021, which will be our 30th anniversary. Yeah. So we have a documentary coming, brand new music, merch capsules. I'm here in New York City right now getting all the merchandise together. And just lo and behold, man, we want to thank everyone for 30 years of love and support. So we're definitely going to reciprocate that love next year. Come celebrate with us.
All right. Well, I appreciate you coming by.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
That was the Dr. Christopher Hall Show, everyone.